Hi everyone, welcome back to All the Right Movies. This is part 2 of our conversation on The Exorcist. If you've landed here without listening to part 1, we'd recommend going back and listening to that first. Loads of good stuff in there.
Absolutely, yeah, loads of fun.
If you've listened already, strap yourself in for part 2 on The Exorcist.
Lovely.
The Crew.
A unique crew on The Exorcist, starting with the screenplay written by seasoned pro William Peter Blatty, adapting his own source material. Matt, your thoughts on his work as writer?
I think what the writing does so effectively is it feels fragmented, but in a very deliberate way. A lot of unusual narrative choices that all feed into this notion of feeling off-kilter throughout. And it also gives a sense of there's a bigger story at play here, but we're only seeing snippets of it. As I said, that Iraq prologue, huge introduction for a character we don't see again until the last 15 minutes of the film, who is also the title character, by the way.
Yes.
That's unusual. Chris, Karras, and Kinderman are all kind of floating around the main story of what's happening to Regan, but their individual stories never really coalesce into something whole. You know, you never get those three together in a scene.
No, that's true.
There are things that are only hinted at. Karras' mother dies off screen. Regan's absent father, that never gets tied up. Chris only hearing that snatch of the conversation that Karras is having with the priest. And when Kinderman enters the film, as was said, like, your first thought is, oh, well, here we go. This is the guy who's going to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. Yeah. But he never does. He only reappears at the end to witness what happened. Yeah. But he doesn't truly understand anything that's gone on either. And there's so many of these events he didn't see. And ultimately, I think Kinderman is meant to represent us as the audience. We've seen a lot. We've seen more than him. But a lot of what we've seen, we don't have answers for. You know, why Regan? What is Pazuzu? Who desecrated the statue in the church? We're in the dark just as much as him in a lot of ways, and the writing leaves a lot of questions unanswered deliberately, which is always really, really brave to do, because it still feels completely satisfying and powerful at the same time.
Yes, it does. At the end, you're not questioning why that desecration in the church, what was happening in Iraq, because the narrative is so powerful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Westy, your thoughts on the writing?
William Peter Blatty, Big Bill, Big Peter, Peter Pan, Peter Can, the Blat in the Hat.
The Blat in the Hat.
I mean, this was a last chance for him, wasn't it? I mean, he's just screwing around in Hollywood. He's going to write this novel. He locked himself away to write it, to get all of this stuff down. Something that I think just had to come out of him. It was a very personal story. And I think his dialogue is absolutely sensational because it's very believable. And each character has, a real sense to them, has a real depth, and each one of them has a backstory, and each one of them is relatable. I think the measure of the way that he writes the characters gives all of them the perfect triangle. It just, each one of them has just the right amount of time and the right arc at the end. And I just like what Matt was saying, there's a lot of questions here, but you leave the viewing of this film going, I'm quite happy not to know the answers to these things. Yeah. I don't want to explore this any further. Yeah. I've delved into this world and it's been so believable, and I've been pulled through it with these characters that I feel like it's just a trauma that I just now need to get over. And he built this world from the ground up. Yes, it has some roots in, reality and stories that he was researching and that type of thing. But he's taken this, he's ran with it. He's turned it into this absolute monster. It is a beautiful, beautiful piece of writing about human traits and about what we're still scared of 50 years later.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I think it's just the ultimate battle of good versus evil. And I'm always blown away by a film that's got an encyclopedic knowledge of kind of highfalutin subjects, and it treats its audience like adults.
Yes,
always
exactly.
a big fan of that.
Yeah.
Blatty doesn't stop to explain a single thing. If you don't understand, well,
tough.
I'm afraid that's your problem.
It definitely is, yeah.
But the reason it works is that he refuses to let go of the ordinary. This is a script about a demon, and the first hour of the film is about a mother worrying about her daughter. Doctors, tests, appointments, second opinions. Chris isn't fighting the devil for most of this film. She's fighting a healthcare system that keeps letting her down.
Yeah.
And every rational explanation gets its full and fair hearing before it's exhausted. Blatty makes you sit through all of this with Chris, so that when she finally asks Karras, how do you go about getting an exorcism, it feels like the only plausible option left on the table, rather than a big reach.
Yeah, it's kind of like, please, let's see if this works.
Because this is the only thing I've got. It's a Hail Mary.
It is, yeah.
The other thing that he does brilliantly is put the audience's skepticism inside the film in the shape of Karras. I think he's the perfect vessel for it. A Jesuit with a psychiatry degree who's lost his faith.
Yeah.
He doesn't believe it either. He wants the tapes, he wants the evidence, he wants a rational explanation more than anybody. So the film never has to argue with you because Karras is already doing that for you on your behalf.
Yeah.
So it's all in the dialogue. Nobody in this script talks like they're in a horror film. They talk like exhausted people at the end of a very long day.
Yeah.
Yes,
Very long
they do.
indeed. Yes,
Yeah.
they do, yeah.
And I think that's the trick. It's why the film still works. Keep the language human. The audience will follow you absolutely anywhere, even up those steps.
Do right, yeah.
It's outstanding writing. Another element which is just at the top of its game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before The Exorcist, William Peter Blatty was a comedy writer. He made his name in comic fiction before moving into films, working with director Blake Edwards on a run of pictures, including the Pink Panther sequel, A Shot in the Dark, in 1964. But the laughs were drying up, and with his comedy career on the slide, Blatty started thinking about writing something in a very different key.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he didn't have to look far because back when he was a student at Georgetown U, Blatty had read about a real exorcism in 1949's Washington Post article. He said, the 49 case inspired me. It was notoriously publicized in the Washington area. I believe this one was the real thing.
Yeah.
He did genuinely believe it.
Well, you can tell that comes across in the writing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And the case involved a 14-year-old boy from DC, known publicly only by the pseudonym Roland Doe and later Robbie Mannheim. As the story goes, the boy had been introduced to a Ouija board by an aunt, and after she died, he carried on with it alone for a few months.
And then things turned. He began suffering frightening night terrors in which he'd gain incredible strength, contort his body, and speak as though a demon were doing the talking.
Other accounts throw in levitation, Brandon appearing on his skin, and for good measure, outrageous flatulence.
Oh,
There's a devil in everyone.
isn't it?
One night, red welts were said to have risen on his back, spelling out the words "Go" and St. Louis.
So his family tried everything, doctors, psychiatrists, the lot. The first attempt at an exorcism was carried out by a Roman Catholic priest at Georgetown University Hospital, but it did not go to plan. The ritual was cut short when the boy, said to have broken free of his restraints, slashed the priest with a mattress spring.
Taking the welts as a fairly literal set of directions, the family moved the boy to St. Louis, where 2 Jesuit priests performed an epic exorcism over a 3-month period.
Wow.
The boy is said to have undergone around 30 exorcisms in all, breaking loose and turning violent in many of them. When it was finally over, Roland reportedly remembered none of it and went on to live a perfectly ordinary life.
Whew, thank God.
Wow.
So Blatty took the story and ran with a couple of significant changes. He turned the possessed boy into a girl, set the story in Washington and Georgetown rather than St. Louis. He wrote the novel in a cabin in the hills of Encino, California, and The Exorcist was published in 1971. The flatulence, mercifully, didn't make the final draft.
Ah, right. Yeah, that's fair
Thank
enough.
goodness.
But it nearly didn't matter because the book landed with a thud. Blatty says his publisher had all but written him off, going so far as to take him out for farewell lunch. His luck turned, though, with the last-minute booking on the Dick Cavett show, filling in for guests who dropped out, where Blatty launched into what he remembered as a 41-minute monologue on demonic possession and whether the devil exists.
It did the trick. The following week, the book sat at number 4 on the Times bestseller list before climbing to number 1 on the New York Times list, where it stayed for 17 straight weeks and lingered on the chart for 57 weeks in total.
Amazing.
Massive. Brian Adams.
Getting it to the screen was its own fight. Before the book took off, Blatty had dragged his screenplay around Hollywood and been knocked back by studio after studio. The moment the novel became a phenomenon, Warner Brothers snapped up the rights, and Blatty came aboard to write the screenplay and negotiated a producing credit as well.
Right.
But there were some omissions from the page to the screen.
Yes, the biggest casualty is the Carl and Elvira subplot, which disappears entirely. In the novel, the housekeeper, Carl Engstrom, is Detective Kinderman's prime suspect in the death of Burke Dennings. Kinderman tails him to a rundown apartment and uncovers Carl's secret, a heroin addict daughter, Elvira, whom his wife Willie believes to be dead.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's too far.
It's too much. These source novels, they always go through these ludicrous subplots.
Yeah.
The novel's black magic material takes a similar hit. On the page, Blatty documents church desecrations and black mass detail at length. The film keeps only a trace of it in the statue desecration and leaves the rest. In the same vein, the detectives and medical strands are far heavier in the book.
Yes, and then there's the tone of the thing. The novel holds onto much more ambiguity about whether Regan is genuinely possessed and dwells at greater length on Karras's crisis of faith.
Yeah.
Blatty freely admitted that he raced the ending as a first draft once Hollywood came knocking, and the endings differ dramatically as a result. In the novel, you're with Chris downstairs in the study and you don't directly see or read the climactic events in the bedroom playing out.
Oh, wow.
Which is a strange choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At Warner Brothers, he did find someone willing to give him that control in production chief John Cayley, who championed the project. Cayley used to tell a really lovely story about reading the novel one night in bed when his dog became spooked by something and the book itself became, quotes, hot to the touch.
Oof, oh my God. Right.
How could he not greenlight the film after that?
Definitely, yeah. That'll do.
Blatty continued writing novels. He wrote The Ninth Configuration that you mentioned, Westy, which he converted into film in 1980. He also wrote Legion, which for the screen was turned into The Exorcist 3, which he also directed.
Yep.
But he will always be remembered as the creator of The Exorcist.
Yes, definitely.
A fascinating story behind the music in the film, trialing a lot of error, and we'll get to that, but our thoughts before we dive into that story. Now, there's not much here in the way of composed music at all. It's all about creating an atmosphere. We've been talking about this.
Yeah.
And it does it so subtly that it's barely there, and yet it makes an enormous impact. The music almost feels like it's just sound design.
It does, yeah, very much.
Yeah. Take the moment where Chris is driving home from the hospital, having just been told that she needs to go and find a psychiatrist. It's a really sparse cue, and probably no longer than 20 seconds, but it captures every bit of fear and paranoia that's rattling around in her head.
Mm-hmm.
And then she gets home to the commotion of Burke's tumble down the steps, and the music turns into that classic horror sound, like piano strings being snapped one at a time.
Yeah.
You find it in a Hitchcock film.
Yes.
Or in Raiders when you can see a spider. It's that kind of sound.
Yeah.
And when they bring Regan back home after the doctors have finally suggested an exorcist, it just looms away in the background. Chris is completely at a loss. Kinderman sniffing around at the bottom of the steps. And there's an absolute unease sitting over the whole thing when we have no idea where it's about to turn. And then there are these long stretches without any music at all, where you're just left hanging, just left dealing with all this imagery.
Yeah.
I think it's quite an achievement. Most horror films tell you when to be frightened. This one just refuses to tell you that you're safe.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
What about you, Matt? The music here?
Very similar, striking how little there is of it. Because going back that first viewing, I knew Tubular Bells. I knew what that was.
Of course.
How associated. I was expecting that to be over the opening credits and then throughout the film. You know, like we've talked before about those early Bond films where they don't really know how to use the Bond thing yet, so they sing over everything.
Yeah.
I was
making a phone call.
Opening the drawer, that kind of thing. I was expecting that kind of thing with Tubular Bells to like undercut every scene of peril and supernatural activity. And that's not what you get when it's used. It's over such an innocuous scene. Yeah. Of Chris walking down the street, like you described, Luke, a pair of nuns on the opposite side, the wind blowing up. Nothing remotely supernatural about it at all.
No.
And the other striking aspect of it is obviously the fact it wasn't even composed for the film. I mean, Mike Oldfield wrote this thing. No concept whatsoever that this would be used in a horror film.
No.
And yet it fits so perfectly.
It does.
It does have that unearthly quality to it, something not quite right about it, but it's not overly cliched at the same time. It's remarkable how well it fits and remarkable how Friedkin was so judicious about when to use it early on in the film, then not again till the end credits, and yet somehow it's still woven itself into the fabric of the film. And it feels like it's always playing even when it's not. It just feels like it's in the background somewhere.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, the rest of it is just sparse but very well judged. Those skittering strings underneath the Help Me scene, the kind of discordant orchestra over the end credits. This is how you do a horror soundtrack. Very
similar to what Kubrick did in The Shining.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Funnily enough, the first thing I've got written down was very similar to what Kubrick did in The Shining. It's got that screeching strings.
Yeah.
It's just so familiar now. But at the time, would have just been, what's that? Yeah. That's so foreign. It's just so past what I'm used to listening to on a soundtrack. It was just so striking. And I think, again, had referenced Toby Hooper, which came out the year later with Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
I think the soundtrack to that is indecipherable from the sound design. And I think it's very, very similar here. He learned a lot from Friedkin with this. Tubular Bells is fantastic. It really is creepy. It works. I think if you don't have Tubular Bells on this, then you don't have John Carpenter doing the Halloween theme in 78.
Oh, definitely not.
Because it's got that rhythmic do-do-do. It's got the same vibe just on a piano. I'll back both of you up and say exactly the same thing, really. It is 100% atmosphere, which is another thing I've got written down. And if you want to make a really good horror soundtrack, a really, really good horror soundtrack, nobody wants to buy it on vinyl because this, and listen to this, alone, by itself, is absolutely unlistenable.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. So
point.
in that way, he's totally achieved here.
The story of the film's music is really the story of everything Friedkin didn't use, right up until the thing he stumbled on almost by accident.
Yeah. His first approach was to the great Bernard Herrmann, who turned the project down after sitting through a rough cut. By Herrmann's own account, he'd suggested using an organ. Friedkin's response was, are you ready for it? I don't want any Catholic music in my picture. Amazing. What's it about, Bill?
That's great. I think their relationship was prickly from the get-go, with Herrmann allegedly telling Friedkin, I might be able to help you with this piece of shit, but you have to leave it with me.
They both sound like bulls loggerheads, don't they?
Yeah, totally.
And next up is Lalo Schifrin, a serious name. His credits take in Mission Impossible theme and scores for Cool Hand Luke, Bullet, Dirty Harry. Friedkin had asked for something chamber scale. What he got on day one was Schifrin booking around 80 musicians and delivering a cue that was big, brassy, percussive, and loud. Schifrin was thrilled with it, and he presented it to Friedkin with a lot of confidence.
Yeah, and Friedkin's reaction has become the stuff of legend. He took one listen, said, get this fucking guy out of here, grabbed the music reel, ran out of the building with it and hurled it across the street into a parking lot. His actual objection was that the score was too big and would drown out the sound effects and dialogue. Absolutely furious, man.
Yeah. I mean, something he maybe could have articulated a little bit better than Schifrin than just going mad. Obviously, Friedkin wasn't that good at articulating his feelings other than just rage. He's like Jack Walsh. Silence and rage.
Silence and rage,
yeah. Amazing.
Schifrin had written about 6 minutes of music for the trailer, that really effective one which uses those quick dissolves of the disturbing black and white images for the film. We talked about it earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Warner's execs asked for something a little softer after complaints from audiences, obviously, because it's terrifying.
Yeah.
But Friedkin didn't pass the message on, and Schifrin later said, I'm sure he did it deliberately. That was one of the most unpleasant experiences of my life.
Wow.
And everybody else's.
Yes. Yeah. With two composers dispatched, Friedkin built his score instead from existing recordings, and there's only around 17 minutes of music in the film.
Wow.
There are classical pieces from the likes of Christoph Penderecki, Anton Webern, and Harry B. And there's an original atmospheric score by Jack Nietzsche and additional music supplied by David Borden.
So just pour it all into the mix and you get The Exorcist.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And then for the musical centerpiece of the film, Friedkin wanted something with a childhood feel. His reference point was Brahms's Lullaby. The head of Warner Brothers pointed him at the studio's music library, and he went digging, and he came across this record called Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield.
Wow. Yeah, only the opening piano figure of part one made it into the film. It's just about 30 seconds worth.
Yeah.
But it became the Exorcist theme.
Yeah. It did.
Oldfield was 19 at the time, and the film brought him just enormous success.
Yeah.
The album went to number 1 in the UK, number 3 in the US. Friedkin said, I listened to that refrain and it hooked me, and we won the rights to it. I think it sold about 10 or 20 million records, and it was an accident.
Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. He's even praising himself for that.
Yeah. No half measures from Billy
Nothing
Friedkin.
at all.
No. So a patchwork of different pieces, both old and new, creating what Friedkin called a presence like a cold hand on the back of your neck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finally, some truly unique visuals on The Exorcist. FX maestro Dick Smith is coming up, but first, Owen Roizman's cinematography. And there's only one place to go, and that is with you, Westy. Owen Roizman's work here.
I mean, Roizman is seeped in realism, in gritty realism. I mean, look at his back catalogue, look what he's done. I mean, Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, 3 Days of the Condor Network, French Connection. You know, it's just All of that has just
Brilliant.
got this real grittiness. Now, get that guy involved in a supernatural horror film, and you're going to get something that's pretty extraordinary. And it's when you get two fields or maybe two genres that you push together that you think these shouldn't really work. You know, putting classical music in an action film totally works, and it shouldn't. But it's just when you get this gritty feel. I mean, it was shot on the Panavision PSR R200, which was a really heavy 35mm studio camera, which is what they got most of the shots in New York on. But then he went to the RFX 35-2C, which is just for all handhelds and all of the tight spaces. And it's just a really light camera that he can move around. So pairing them two together, that's just like putting lead guitar in an orchestra. Do you know what I mean? It shouldn't really work having them two, but they both work off each other, and you kind of tell what's being pushed from one to the other. But it's the technique that he uses this equipment for, and it's how he uses them techniques in this film. Observational, long, slow shots, and he's shown a journey towards evil. He's shown a descent into this absolute pain that you have to then work all the way through and come all the way out of. And that's the genius of it. Every single moment of horror in this film, if you rewind it, you can see it building up. It's like that slow build on a roller coaster to the drop, and then does it again, but does it so beautifully with just the banister coming in front of you, and you're like, but there's something in my way. Right, I'm obscured by something. There's just all of these barriers and all of these obstacles that you've really got to overcome visually to even get to the characters. Now, if you look at Chris as a character and how she's framed in the film, we spoke about it earlier, how she just gets smaller and smaller in the house.
Does,
that's completely on purpose, and that's so beautifully framed by Roizman. And there's just, the shots of the breath, the way that that's lit, everything had to be individually lit. They had to hide them lights and make it look like practicals. It doesn't look like it's classic horror lighting where it's lit from the bottom to do that on purpose. He hasn't used any classical tropes or techniques. There's no real whip pans here to a jump scare. No, there's none of that. It's all slow. It's all considered. It's all measured. It's all documentary filmmaking done to such a high level that it becomes cinematic and theatrical. And only Roizman at this time could have pulled this off. It's a fantastic piece of work from him.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that the film hangs on is you have to believe that this is happening. And we've talked about this through the performance, through the writing, through the directing. And I think Roizman is well on board with that as well, because there's no gloss here.
No.
There's no like horror lighting or anything like that. Georgetown looks like Georgetown. It's grey and damp. The leaves are coming down. It's autumnal. The McNeil house looks like a house. A hospital looks like a hospital. And so whatever is in the front of the lens, that's what you get.
Yes.
I think that's a brave choice, because the easy version is to drench this in shadow. But I think Roizman does the opposite. He lights it plainly. He shoots it flat, and he dares you to keep looking.
Exactly.
There was only really one choice to shoot this. Owen Roizman had started out in TV advertising before moving to features, and he'd already worked with Friedkin on The French Connection.
Yeah.
And he landed an Oscar nomination for it as well. When it came to The Exorcist, he was the obvious man.
Roizman and Friedkin wanted the same available light documentary feel as The French Connection. Through this time, in Roizman's words, a little bit slicker, more controlled than it had been. The whole philosophy was to shoot what it was actually in front of him. If you're going into a dirty, dingy area, don't try and make it look like anything else. Whatever my eye sees, I like to see on film.
Yeah, that's what you get.
Yeah, exactly. Eastman 100T 5254 stock as well, which is pretty much documentary stock, 35mm, beautiful stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that'll be a hangover from The French Connection, because that just looks like a documentary.
Yeah, I think it's the same stock, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Friedkin fell for Georgetown as a location straight away. He reckoned the film would have lost most of its power if it was shot somewhere like LA. He and Roizman worked to make Georgetown a character in its own right, and the exterior shots are mostly dolly or tracking moves, a deliberate choice so they weren't forced into too many cuts.
Yeah. The interiors were built and shot in New York, and Roizman designed the McNeil house to feel like an ordinary home, given it an "it could happen to you" quality, as Matt was saying earlier. You saw it as an extension of Friedkin's running theme of darkness and light.
Yes, very much. And he employed some inventive tactics for maximum impact. The psychiatrist scene, for example, where Reagan grabs the doctor by the balls.
Yes.
That was pulled off with a wooden box rig built like a seesaw. So the actor leaned against the back of the box with the cameraman on the opposite side.
Right.
The whole thing was tilted backwards, so the actor appeared to be falling to the ground with the camera following him all the way down.
Great. Yeah.
Right. And for the levitation in the exorcism scene, Roizman's advertising background came into its own with an effect he'd previously created. He had the set painter paint dotted black and white lines onto the wires holding Regan up. He knew a solid black line on a light background or the reverse would give the game away, but a dotted line is far harder to catch and it allowed him to get away with a lot. He then lit the scene so there were shadows on the background and the wires would simply blend in.
He knows his trade.
Yeah.
Finally, we've got makeup effects by the one and the only Dick Smith. He cut his teeth in TV makeup through the 50s and 60s before moving into film, and the likes of Little Big Man turned Marlon Brando into Vito Corleone in The Godfather, and would later handle the blood-drenched finale of Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
No messing.
No. It's really interesting because it's what a lot of people associate with The Exorcist first and foremost, the special effects, but they are quite superficial in the sense that they get you attention, but that's not really trying to scare you. That's not the primary purpose of them. The other stuff is the scary stuff. This is the surface level stuff just to get your attention.
Yeah.
And if you're expecting that to be the scariest thing in the film, you're missing out on everything going on underneath them. And at the end of the day, you're talking about special effects from 50 years ago. Inevitably, some things won't look great at the modern eye. The head twist is clearly mechanical. But so what? You're talking about 5 seconds on screen.
Yeah.
If that's enough to kind of ruin the film for you, that's your prerogative. I don't know what to say. That's not the point of the film.
Yeah.
The makeup, though, that has not aged one day. And it's the type of effect that sets the standard. What does someone possessed look like? Well, they look like Linda Blair in The Exorcist.
Yeah.
That's how good the makeup is.
It's the blueprint, isn't it?
It's the blueprint. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah. I mean, I defy even the most talented of makeup artists to be able to pull this off even today. I think the skill and technique, I think Dick Smith is a real one-off.
Yes, 100%. Dick Smith, known as the godfather of makeup, was key to the film's success. He was the only name on Friedkin's list. There was no second choice. If we didn't get Dick Smith, I didn't know who we were going to get.
Wow. It all hangs on him.
Absolutely.
What he did, he was genuinely, groundbreaking. He pioneered what he called special makeup effects, changing an actor's face and body live on camera without reaching for optical trickery. His assistant at the time was a very young Rick Baker.
Yes.
Who called Smith's work a real landmark, the beginnings of a lot of wacky makeup effects stuff we're doing today.
Definitely.
And for the look of the demon, Smith first had to cast Blair's face, and he ran through 6 different makeup jobs before any of them satisfied Friedkin. The solution they landed on was that the disfigurement should look self-inflicted, wounds Regan had inflicted upon herself. So her top lip was inflated and the lower one cracked and split, and pale contact lenses went into her eyes, with Smith using anesthetizing drops to get them in.
Yeah, I mean, she went through the ringer. We've been talking about it. Those self-inflicted wounds, the idea was that she'd done it with the crucifix herself.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just Smith and Baker. The practical and mechanical effects were the work of Marcel Vercouter, like we talked about earlier, Westy, treading brand new ground with Smith by trial and error.
And for the head turn, Smith and Vercouter built a life-size mechanical dummy of Blair with a motorised neck that could rotate fully. Smith did everything outside of the dummy, and Vercouter did everything inside.
Smith clearly had faith in the thing, because during production he propped the dummy up in front of a New York taxi to test it on the public, spinning its head at passers-by and sending them scattering in every direction. Get in. Brilliant.
We've got a load more on the makeup and effects work, but that's going to come up later in the finale. For all of his work, Smith didn't win anything at the Oscars, for the simple reason that the best makeup category didn't exist yet in 1973.
Yeah, fair enough.
The first ever makeup Oscar went to his apprentice at the time, Rick Baker, in 1981 for American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
Smith's own Academy recognition came later, a competitive win for Amadeus in 85 and an honorary Oscar in 2011.
Nice.
Yeah.
So The Exorcist has a crew firing on all cylinders, a seasoned writer creating his masterpiece, FX wizardry, boundary-pushing cinematography, and a patchwork score creating an unbearable atmosphere.
Yeah.
The end.
We're into the final stretch, and it ain't pretty. We're starting with Karras meeting Regan for the first time, before Father Murren arrives on the scene in iconic fashion.
Yeah.
Karras meets Regan first, and here comes our boy, completely skeptical until he walks into that room and sees this thing in front of him tied to the bed.
Yeah.
It's a startling image. The difference between the Regan at the start and here are just poles apart.
Yeah.
This poor girl, she's going through something unimaginable. There is footage available online of Blair's original dialogue, her voice only in this scene. And it's quite creepy and a surprise to hear that angelic voice spewing out this really hurtful dialogue. But it also goes to show the impact that Mercedes McCambridge had on the part, because she's sinister, she's terrifying, disgusting, and she's really funny as well. That La Plume de ma tante line has me in stitches every time, combined with that horrific demon cackle that she has.
Yeah.
And then the much ballyhooed pea soup moment, one of the most notorious in film history.
Yeah.
Friedkin just holds on Miller for what seems like an age after he says, "What is it?" about talking about his mother's name. Something's coming, but nothing could prepare you for the putrid jet straight in the mouth.
Yeah. And to achieve the projectile vomit effect, they built a contraption that sat in the actress's mouth, camouflaging the tubes on her face with fake skin on, and ran to the back of her head into a contraption that pumped steaming hot Anderson pea soup and oatmeal. Eileen Dietz stood in for Blair during the majority of the scene, with Verkuda operating the pump.
Friedkin didn't like the fine spray the rig produced, so he reshot with Blair miming and superimposed a thicker stream over the top, one of the film's very few optical effects.
Yeah, it's a chunky stream that's coming out of her mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's got weight to it.
Yeah, it certainly has.
It does indeed.
And the most famous bit of it was an accident. Friedkin had told Jason Miller the vomit would hit his chest, but the tube misfired straight into his face instead. So that disgust on his face, that's entirely real.
Yeah, despite it being an accident, Miller was furious.
You can see he is in the film.
Of course
Yeah.
he is, yeah. Friedkin told this hilarious story of Miller chasing Verkuda around the bed like a Benny Hill sketch. And as a footnote, the vomiting sounds were Mercedes McCambridge up to her old tricks again, produced with chewed apple and raw egg.
Wow.
And finally, what's really powerful is the scene downstairs between Chris and Karis. This incredible dialogue and performance. Karis is still resistant, 6 months, under observation in the best hospital you can find. Great dialogue, but then bursting, erupts into this emotional ball of fury about her daughter in some of the best delivered dialogue you're ever likely to find in any film.
Mm-hmm.
You show me Reagan's double, same face, same voice, everything, and I'd know it wasn't Reagan. I'd know in my gut. Oh, that's just like every mother's prerogative, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
And I'm telling you, that thing upstairs is not my daughter. Brilliant. You tell me that for a fact that an exorcism wouldn't do any good. You tell me that, and she's screaming that last line.
Yeah.
Believe every syllable of it.
Yeah, that's absolute desperation, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah. So I'm going to go for when Karis comes back to see Reagan, and he's starting to believe it now. He's starting to turn it. He needs to kind of find ways to prove it, not only to the church, but to himself, I think, more importantly.
I think that's,
and
absolutely.
this is where it does get funny, but it also gets really dark and really terrifying. You know, what an excellent day for an exorcism, that line comes in. And then, that would bring us together, you and us. So how many people are there? How many tortured souls are in that body? How many people are getting pushed over? And then there's the combination of all of these different personalities, and the Latin and the French comes out. That's when it starts getting really terrifying. And the combination of everything's going on, and then the holy water goes on, and there's that scream and the reaction from that. It's like, oh, hold on a second. This is just a little bit too much for me now. If I'm honest, it's just getting a little bit, it's far too uncomfortable. I mean, you've seen how bad the room's got, and it's just how cold it is and how grim it is. And then he's trying everything that you can possibly do. And then from that, he goes back to research it. And when he's listening to the tapes, and it's kind of like this bit, that fucking phone ringing.
Oh, that's terrifying.
That's
so loud.
It's so loud. It's too loud. And I can see Friedkin just laughing like Yosemite Sam shooting his guns in the air. Get that louder. Amazing. And then he goes back, and you see how cold the room's got. He has to get back there. Something's happened. And there's just the lighting in this scene. It starts to look like the demon's taking over the house. He's starting to come out of Reagan, and he's in the walls. It's in the floor. It's in the bed. It's starting to seep out like moss, kind of just with the light and the way it's just engulfing the room. And he comes in, and then we see that "help me" just written, scrawled over the stomach. And I see that now, and I'm like, it's got to be an influence on Seven. Kevin Walker's watching that and he's like, that's a really good idea to put that in fingerprints. And from that moment, it's just like, how is he going to get out of this? What are we going to do? We need to get Bonnie Tyler, like we're holding out for a hero. Who's going to turn up?
The moment that those words rising out of Regan's stomach that you're talking about, Dick Smith built a foam latex replica of Blair's abdomen and painted the words on it in a solvent which reacted chemically to puff up into Ray's welts. Yeah. He then took a hairdryer to the blisters to deflate them, filmed the whole thing, and then ran it backwards so the words would appear to surface out of her skin for the film.
Right.
It's a striking moment.
Unreal. So, yeah, we're holding out for a hero. And here he comes. Because I know it's easy to give in to hyperbole or get carried away when we talk about these things on these episodes, but genuinely, the shot of Merrin arriving at the house, the timing of it, how the taxi disguises him a bit until he stands up, almost like comes out of the shadows and walks into that shaft of light coming from Regan's window, which just pierces that fog. And he's in silhouette. I mean, that genuinely has to be in the conversation for the single greatest shot of all time.
Yeah, it's got to be.
And that's because you can show someone that one image, tell them nothing else apart from maybe the title. They'll want to know everything about this film on the power of that one image alone.
Yes, absolutely.
And the only reason they might not is because they're too scared by it. And again, that's how powerful this image is. I mean, I remember before I saw the film growing up, just seeing this image in magazines, books, whatever, and thinking, if that's supposed to be the good guy, what on earth is the rest of the film like? Because he looks terrifying beyond belief. I'm just so scared of this guy arriving on the scene. And then it's not like it even dips after that. I mean, that glimpse of the possessed Regan where it suddenly perks up, like, oh, now it's getting interesting. Merrin's arrived. This is a proper fight.
That close-up.
Its eyes just both proper fight on its hands and a chance of revenge. And Merrin stepping out of the darkness and the fog into Chris's home. It's just iconic image after iconic image. And for a film that isn't big on jump scares, it doesn't really do them. It pulls off a doozy here when Pazuzu just thunders, Merrin! through the house. And because Friedkin's held off for so long making this film look like a stereotypical horror film, it pays off such dividends here because then you get that scene of Karras hurrying through the night fog. And it's just, great. It's like this chill just sits on your shoulders and goes, this is it now. This is what we've been building towards. This is the stuff. And I love how Merrin is just not messing around. No, don't need the details. I know what this is. The demon's a liar. Let's go. And you're just thrown into this confrontation where you're, on one hand, you're really glad to see Merrin turn up. On the other hand, you're absolutely terrified because he has turned up. And what does this mean?
Yeah, I think Merrin's attitude is fantastic as well. Like, the more he knows, the weaker he is.
It's great.
Exactly. It's brilliant. Yeah.
That dialogue's absolutely incredible. That pep talk, the demon is a liar, but he'll mix lies with the truth to attack us. The attack is psychological, Damien, and powerful. He'd come on the scene and he means business.
He absolutely does, yeah. And as Merrin arrives, we get this image outside the house that became the poster. It was inspired by a series of paintings by René Magritte called Empire of Light. Friedkin was struck by the paintings, which he said perfectly visualizes the idea of something uncanny and beyond comprehension invading an ordinary home.
Yeah, he's captured that.
Absolutely.
Friedkin said in the novel, Father Merrin arrives outside the home like a melancholy traveller frozen in time. So I had to find a way to visualize that, and I allowed a full day to light the scene. We used arc lights and troopers to light the street, and after a great deal of trial and error, we filmed on the second night.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
And as tends to happen with the larger-than-life roles from the era that we cover on this show, the studio's first instinct was to reach for Marlon Brando. Friedkin killed that one stone dead, his reasoning being that cast Brando and you don't have the Exorcist anymore. You have a Brando movie with everything else bending around him.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. It's not working.
No.
Blatty did have his own preference in Paul Scofield, an Oscar winner for A Man for All Seasons.
Oh, nice.
And in the end, Friedkin cast Mac von Sydow partly on the strength of a photograph of Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, a Jesuit priest and one of the real-life models for Merrin.
Very nice.
Well done.
But Friedkin was also a huge Ingmar Bergman devotee, and he rated von Sydow the finest screen actor of his day. Von Sydow had worked with Bergman 11 times, most famously on The Seventh Seal in 1957, still routinely named among the greatest films ever made. I agree.
Well, there was one catch. Von Sydow was only 44 when they shot this, and Merrin needed to be a man some 30 years older. That job of fixing that fell to our friend Dick Smith, who spent around 3.5 hours in the chair with him every single day, aging him up with liquid latex.
Yes.
Yeah.
And looks exactly like Von Sydow does in his 70s.
Yeah.
Yes, he does. It's uncanny.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's
That's how good
uncanny.
Dick Smith is, yeah. Absolutely nailed it to the wall.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So the big man is on the scene and we're headed for an almighty encounter.
Yes, we are.
Okay, now we're talking light versus dark, good versus evil, Jesus Christ versus the devil, Churchill versus Hitler, Balboa versus Drago, Murren versus Pazuzu. Let's go. Come on.
Pazuzu's cut.
And it's a bad cut. No holds barred in Georgetown. Okay, the promise of the poster is upon us here. Lancaster Murren won't take no shit off anybody. He's undeterred by outrageous obscenities being spat at with what looks like gloopy ready breck from Pazuzu.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He knows exactly what he's there to do. He's been here before. And it's an unrelenting stream of words and actions by Murren, reading from the good book, slapping holy water around like there's no tomorrow. It's incredible. He's an absolute professional.
Yes.
It's grotesque when Regan is oozing green bile from her mouth. And it's an amazing performance from Blair. She goes from writhing around in agony, crying, to that insane cackle. And I know she's helped by Mercedes McCambridge, but it's just fascinating. I can't believe that they were able to get this performance from this 13-year-old.
It's the physicality, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's the physicality of
the
it,
contortion and just the movement. It really matches the audio.
It does. And for all his class, the material got to Von Sydow on the first day of filming. He actually forgot his lines. He found Blair's crude dialogue just that little bit too unsettling. Jason Miller told a lovely version of this, describing Von Sydow as this gentleman, this aristocrat. And it was his first take on the exorcism. Regan delivered the immortal line, "Your mother sucks, certain things in hell."
Yes.
And Von Sydow cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses, and calmly called it himself. He said, "I've lost it, Billy. I've just lost it."
You could totally see him doing that.
Yeah. So in this scene, you've got walls cracking, objects crashing down, fire and brimstone raining down. Murren's response to Regan's string of obscenities is perfect. A direct-to-camera address. "I cast you out!"
Yeah.
That's
amazing.
so powerful.
Yeah.
Which results in Regan levitating, which unleashes probably the most recognizable line in the film.
Mm-hmm.
The power of Christ compels you.
Yeah.
And it's repeated incessantly. Regan whacks Damien in the back, but Murren is so focused on the task at hand, he's got no time to address that.
No.
It doesn't matter about this. There's more important things to deal with.
Yeah.
I think that he knows that this is his last hurrah, like we've been saying.
Yeah.
He's come face to face with this evil before, and he's going to win or he's going to die trying.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is it. And we know how frail he is on account of those tablets that he's taken for his heart, the nitroglycerin tablets.
Yes.
It's an incredibly strong, fragile performance, and Von Sydow unbelievably carries himself as if he were an 80-year-old Jesuit priest, a man who younger than us at this point.
That's the perfect oxymoron for it, isn't it? It's like a strong, fragile performance.
Yeah.
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 Regan's bedroom was intentionally built to feel safe at the start and nurturing, so that the corruption of it lands a lot harder when it changes later on. Once the procession takes hold, the room became a refrigerated set with the bed controlled by hydraulics.
Right.
And 4 large freezer units above the room ran from midnight, driving the temperature below zero. One humid morning, though, a thin layer of snow reportedly fell inside.
Wow.
And the trouble was the set lighting kept warming the air back up, so it only stayed properly cold for around 3 minutes of filming at a time.
3 minutes. Wow.
Do you realize it's snowing in my room? God damn it.
Weird science. Love it.
Incredible. Snow literally falling in a bedroom. It's crazy.
Can't believe you got weird science in The Exorcist. I love it. Much of the carnage in the exorcism scenes, the roof cracking, the door splitting, the room shaking, the bed lurching, is drawn from accounts of modern-day exorcisms. Friedkin obtained a tape from the Vatican containing recorded audio of a live exorcism and looped it into the soundtrack for the demon's moments of agony.
Wow.
And the repeated, "The power of Christ compels you," that came from footage too, repeated because it was what actually seemed to subdue the demon. The room itself was built on 8 pneumatic wheels to achieve that whole set shudder.
Yeah, it's so powerful.
Oh, totally.
And then they have the demon under control. It's kind of like half time. And now they're taking a nice little break. And there's that moment, the moment in the director's cut or the version you've never seen, but we've all seen it,
Yeah.
Just after this scene where Karras is asking why this girl, it doesn't make sense. And it's the one that Billy Friedkin and Blatty argued the most over.
Yeah.
For Blatty, the scene was essential because its purpose was to make us despair, to make us feel humanity is so vile that if there were a God, he couldn't possibly love us, precisely so the audience would be permitted not to hate themselves for enjoying the film's more horrific moments. It was the very first scene that Friedkin cut on the grounds that the message was already threaded through the entire film anyway. We didn't need to be explicit about it. Blatty never forgave Friedkin for it.
Right.
I wouldn't have either.
It was his baby. It's a great scene.
Superb. So this is the moment. Merrin's dead. We don't know him well enough to feel sad. We don't have time to feel sad because we're already terrified. And is she going to die? And, Karras has to make a decision here. He has to figure out what is going to happen. Is his guilt going to take over? Is he going to recompense for everything that he's done with his mother? Is he going to take care of this child and live through her so she can survive? And that's what he chooses to do. But you'd completely believe that she is now pursues it. He's killed Merrin. Right, I want this thing out of her. And he's just fighting with it. And there's just them lovely moments that aren't really played in like super close up. There's no slow-mo of that St. George's medal getting pulled off and now I'm open to it. It's off, and if you're not looking, you don't see it. It's all just part of the carnage that's going on. But from that point, Pazuzu can then enter Karras, which is kind of what he wants to do anyway. He wants to hurt everybody that he possibly can, and killing another priest is just genius for him to do it. And then it's straight out the window. His last sacrifice, it's just wonderfully done. The way he just goes out there and makes that decision. And you see that his face change. And it's terrifying. This guy that you've just supported, who you've seen go through all of this shit, taking on even more shit to the point that it kills him, is heartbreaking. When he hits them steps and he goes down them, then we know what's happened to Burke, and it's a bam, 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 and it is so visceral and just so heavy and just so documentary style, and so like The French Connection if it was a foot chase. Do you know what I mean? It's got that level to it, and the sound design absolutely crunches home. And then you get Joseph Dyer, who's played by William O'Malley, who gives him the final rites. And he comes in and he's physically shaking, and it's just the way that Karen's just squeezing his hand. He can't talk, but he's answering it like, yes, okay, thank you. And to get all of that from no dialogue and no expressions and just fingers squeezing is an incredible way to end the film.
It really is, It's a really tender moment.
It's really poetic after all of this shit that's gone on.
Yeah.
And for the exterior house at 3600 Prospect Street in Georgetown, they built a false wing onto the real building purely to place Reagan's window beside the steps. And this allowed the stunt double to fall directly down the neighbouring Hitchcock steps, as they were called, which were padded with half-inch rubber for the drop.
Rumour has it that on the day of filming the scene, Georgetown students who lived nearby rented out their rooftops to the tune of $5 per person so that interested onlookers could get a better view.
Bargain.
Brilliant.
We've been mentioning it, but for the moment that Father Dyer gives Karras the last rites at the foot of the stairs, Friedkin had shot around 15 takes and just wasn't getting the raw grief that he wanted. This is a man watching his best friend die horribly. The actor, Father William O'Malley, who wasn't an actor, he was a priest. Friedkin told him that he was no good, and he asked O'Malley if he trusted him. And the priest said, yeah, of course I do, Billy. And Billy, bang, slapped him straight across the face.
Yeah.
And O'Malley went straight into that scene, and that's the take in the film. You can see his hand trembling when he's giving him the last rites. Friedkin called it she and nerve juice.
Right. Amazing.
One word for it.
Yeah, I've been a prick. That's what he should have said. But I got it.
Yeah.
I got the shot.
And then after this long night of the soul, we get the next morning, and everything we've been through, we get this 5 minutes where you can just relax and take a breath. But even so, even though you know it's done, it doesn't feel like a lap of victory at all. I mean, Reagan still bears the physical scars. Does she have mental ones? Who knows? We get told she doesn't remember anything, but for how long? Even Chris saying goodbye to Sharon, the hired help, is deeply sad because what they've been through together, they'll never be able to tell anybody else.
Yeah.
Nobody else will understand what's gone on here because really deep down they still don't understand. They've had no answers. It's complete tragedy in a lot of ways, and it's what I said about the writing. It kind of pushes you to the outside of this story. At the end, you are Kinderman, you are Father Dyer. I mean, how does Father Dyer make sense of this? Two priests dead in one night because of this ritual. How does that affect him going forward? What does that do to his faith? How does the church explain any of this? Or do they just push it under the carpet? And you see Dyer trying to put the pieces together, standing underneath the boarded up window, looking down the steps, but he'll never have the answers. And that might be a good thing, actually, because the answer is terrifying beyond belief. And ultimately, this film is bookended with an opening scene and a closing scene that leave you with far more questions than answers. And yet, somehow, it's completely satisfying.
Yeah.
It is.
And now cue tubular bells.
Yeah. Great.
And the ending is where Blatty and Friedkin's disagreement really crystallizes. Blatty wanted something more redemptive and less ambiguous. The theatrical cut ends on Father Dyer looking down the fatal steps. Earlier, as the McNeils leave, Regan sees Dyer's collar and instinctively kisses him on the cheek, and Dyer keeps the medallion.
Yeah, and the version you've never seen before from 2000 that softens this ending. It restores a coda which Kinderman and Dyer meet as the car pulls away. Kinderman asking Dyer if he likes films, and the two wandering off to eat. There's a line of dialogue that couldn't be restored, and I'm quite glad it didn't. Kinderman saying this could be the start of a beautiful friendship.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have worked.
No, you don't need a riff on Casablanca at this point.
No, not at all.
And it alters the medallion exchange so that Chris keeps the medal. Small changes Blatty felt completed Chris's arc towards faith.
Yes, yeah. I think you feel like she's protected now.
Yes.
Blatty was devastated when the coda was originally removed because he didn't want audiences leaving the cinema believing evil had won. Friedkin's take on the ending was this: I shot that ending and it was no fucking good at all. Bang.
So the morning after the night before offers some hope for mankind or confirms that evil is always around us, depending on which version of the film you prefer.
Yes.
Reception and awards.
The Exorcist ballooned from an 85-day schedule to more than 200 days and ran roughly $2.5 million over its initial budget. Before all the mayhem of the release of The Exorcist, an early screening for 5 Warner's execs took place. One senior figure was so disgusted that he suggested they shelve the film permanently and never release it.
Wow.
And that was just the start of it.
Yes, The Exorcist garnered controversy immediately when it was released on December 26, 1973. The MPAA handed it an R instead of an X. The New York Times reported in 1974 that an R rating effectively declared the film fit for children, so long as an adult came along, and it detailed an incident of a young girl being removed from a showing and placed in an ambulance.
Yes.
But the MPAA held its ground, reasoning that the film's lack of nudity or overt sexuality qualified it for an R rating rather than an X.
Yeah, no overt sexuality. Really? The reports of severe audience reaction to the film are legendary. Yes. In Washington, D.C., local kids were keen to spot their own neighborhoods on screen and queued around the block, but local authorities put a ban on anyone under 17 from seeing the film.
Queues ran down the street and round the block in multiple cities. No small commitment for a bitterly cold winter release, and in some cities, police were brought in to manage rioting crowds. In February 1974, Newsweek captured the mood. On December 26, a movie called The Exorcist opened in theatres across the country, and since then, all hell has broken loose.
Amazing.
Brilliant, yeah.
And the physical reactions are real, if heavily mythologized over the years. Fainting and vomiting were widely reported. A woman allegedly had a miscarriage, and there were reports of a woman fainting, breaking her jaw in the fall and suing Warner Brothers.
Wow.
Reactions were so strong that some theatres handed out Exorcist bath bags.
Brilliant.
Although they were more than likely a gimmick to make audiences come flocking.
Yeah, fair enough.
And flock they did. On a $12 million budget, The Exorcist returned $193 million on its initial release, but through various re-releases, it has earned a whopping $441 million.
Wow.
The controversy followed overseas. It sparked the wrath of the church in the UK, who got it banned in certain areas and offered spiritual support in others.
It got clamped down on even further for the video release when the 1984 Video Recordings Act was introduced. The BBFC refused to give it a home video rating, thinking it was too accessible for children. It stayed unavailable for home viewers for over a decade, finally re-released in 1999, which we all remember, yes. I'm sure.
Glory days. Reaction was so violent that Blair received an insane amount of death threats, most of them from religious types convinced she was the voice and helper of Satan himself.
Wow.
They got so vile that Warner Brothers had to put bodyguards on her around the clock 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for nearly 6 months. And it didn't stop once the film was out and the noise had died down. The threats kept coming for years and years afterwards. Incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Critics were a bit overwhelmed by the film and not all reviews were positive.
Yep, Pauline Kael, she had something to say. Shallowness that asks to be taken seriously. Shallowness like William Peter Blatty's is an embarrassment. The film is a faithful adaptation of the Blatty book, and that's not a compliment.
Well, I disagree with Pauline on that one.
Yes,
Yeah,
very
fair
much
enough.
so.
And Stanley Kaufman didn't mince his words, writing in the New Republic. He said, "The Exorcist will scare the shit out of you." Fair enough.
Great. And what about our big man? Big Roger Ebert. What did he give it out of 4, fellas?
Ooh, I'd say
This is a tough one.
4.
I'll go 3.
Oh, Matt, you're right. It's the big 4.
Oh,
4
big
out of 4.
Boom.
Nice work.
He said that it was a frontal assault that doesn't rest on screen, but he also wondered, I'm not sure exactly what reasons people will have for seeing this movie. Are people so numb they need movies of this intensity in order to feel anything at all?
But loved it.
Yes.
Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. And The Exorcist wasn't done there, was it, Matt?
Nope. At the 46 Academy Awards, it landed 10 nominations. Picture, director, actors for Burstyn, supporting actor for Miller, supporting actors for Blair, adapted screenplay, sound, cinematography, film editing, and art direction. And crucially, this was the first ever horror film to be nominated for Best Picture.
Brilliant.
Yeah, groundbreaking stuff.
Massively, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Blair's nomination came with a bit of an asterisk, though. It grew controversial as word spread about McCambridge's contribution to the character's voice. And in the end, the film converted just 2 of its 10 nominations, adapted screenplay for Blatty and sound for Robert Cunson and Chris Newman.
Yeah.
It lost Best Picture to The Sting, which also had 10 nominations, but turned 7 of them into wins, though The Exorcist did beat The Sting head-to-head in the sound category.
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
The Golden Globes were far kinder. The film took Best Drama, Best Director for Friedkin, Best Supporting Actress for Blair, and Best Screenplay for Blatty.
And it's regularly cited as one of the greatest horror movies ever made, but it's so much more than that.
Absolutely,
yes,
yeah.
It really is, yeah.
And now it has 78% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes. I think that's a little low. I'm surprised at that.
I'm surprised at that, yeah.
87% from audiences, though, and a high 8.1 out of 10 on IMDb.
Mm-hmm.
Big numbers.
And as we're here, we've got our final patron question from Stuart McDean. Hi, Stuart.
Hi,
Hello,
Stuart.
Stuart says, this film was renowned for the impact it had on audiences, with people apparently fainting and leaving the cinema. 2 questions, really. What film, if any, has had a similar impact on you guys that you still think about? Westy, you can have 3.
Thank you.
Your reputation precedes you, Westy.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, do you think that social media and the fact that so much is known about films before they are released, that we will ever have the shock value again for a new film? Carry on with the top work, lads. We will do, Stuart, for certain.
We'll try.
Yes, thank you, Stuart. Thanks, mate.
Westy, your thoughts on Stuart's question?
I've got 3, obviously.
Okay, of course.
If I'm allowed. 3 that had a similar effect is Requiem for a Dream. That hasn't left us, and I don't think it will. There's The Mist. I don't think that'll leave us either
Good
for
punch.
a very long time. And then The Vanishing. Yeah, that's horrible.
Yes, it is.
Is that the Dutch version?
Yeah, the Dutch version.
The original,
yeah.
Horrific.
Horrific stuff, all 3
Yeah.
of them. And will we ever have the same shock value because of the likes of, social media and everything we've got now that's so accessible? No, but I do think people are trying to capitalize on social media to create a shock value. Wait until you see this. We've all seen them horror films coming out where we're just seeing audience reactions and they're just like, oh, everyone's so scared. You won't believe what you're going to see on the screen. You're not going to believe what's going to be. And I just don't think we're going to be able to do it because this is just such an honest film that taps into primal fears of the human race. It's just that simple.
It really is.
I think the least said about films these days, the absolute better.
Yeah.
100%.
I think every film should come out to absolute silence and people should go and see it and see what you think of it. And just judge it on the artwork, judge it on the poster, judge it on the trailer like you always used to. Go in. If you fancy it, watch it, and its reputation should precede itself. So will we ever get something like The Exorcist again? Maybe, but I very much doubt it.
Yeah, on your first question, Stuart, I think the simple answer for me is The Descent.
Right, fair enough.
Yeah.
Nothing has ever got me like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the double threat. It's a terrifying horror movie before the baddies show up because it's so goddamn claustrophobic.
Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah.
I can feel my chest tightening even just talking about it.
Yeah.
And if you want to maintain that terror, then the baddies better hit the mark. And geez, they certainly do.
Yeah.
I said it on our double feature show when we covered Dog Soldiers and The Descent.
Yes.
But I leapt out of my chair to my friend's arm like Scooby-Doo when those show up. Terrifying.
Yeah.
And on the second question, honestly, I don't think we will ever see a film like this. The hype machine is too much. I don't necessarily think it's social media's fault. I think it's that we've all just agreed on what a film is now.
Yeah.
1973, nobody knew what The Exorcist was going to be because nothing like it existed.
Yeah.
Today, you know the runtime, you've got the certificate, the twist, the discourse, and the reaction shots before you've even bought a ticket. So you arrive braced.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of set your stall out, and you can't be ambushed if you're already braced. I mean, the shock is still possible, but if it does come, I think it'll come from something that just nobody's marketing. Matt, what are your thoughts?
The main two films, one, we've covered it. Go back and listen up with the Blair Witch Project, obviously.
Oh,
Kind of just left reeling at the end of that. The other one, Michael Haneke's Funny Games. Nothing funny about that.
God.
Nothing at all.
No.
Nothing at all. No laughs to be found out whatsoever.
No.
That wink of the camera.
God. As for the second part, I don't know if social media has anything to do with it rather than the fact that it's just harder to shock people. These days, we are desensitized to a lot of horror imagery and themes, and it's important to remember just how high The Exorcist set the bar for putting things on screen we've never seen before. And I think once you break that particular barrier of children in danger, questioning religion, it's hard to think of anything else that would be as shocking as that, other than kind of just endless gore, which isn't really the same. And I think the flip side is, if it wasn't for social media, would we have horror films as successful as the recent ones, which have heavily relied on social media word of mouth to make them the huge successes they have become? So, no, I don't think we'll ever have another horror film to have that visceral impact of The Exorcist, because there's not that many boundaries left to break, if any. But I think we've seen plenty of evidence that in terms of engaging a mass audience, there's definitely been some up there with it. And to be honest, they've relied on social media to do so.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, thank you for your question, Stuart.
Yes, thank you, Stuart.
Which brings an end to the ultimate roller coaster in demonic terror.
Yes.
With the power to strike fear still alive and well.
Unfortunately.
Sequels and influence.
The Exorcist kicked off a whole wave of interest in horror with a religious angle, the most successful of which was The Omen in 1976, starring Gregory Peck. More broadly, it ignited the 1970s demonic and occult cycle and fed directly into countless possession films that followed, including Italian production Beyond the Door from 1974, which Warner sued for copyright infringement, and blaxploitation film Abby also from 1974, which Warner's had pulled from theatres, and it remains largely unreleased to this day.
Wow. Right.
But given the original success, a sequel was inevitable, and it duly arrived 4 years later. That is The Exorcist 2, The Heretic from 1977, directed by John Borman, who had already turned down the original film, finding it repulsive. Max von Sydow and Linda Blair returned, but Blatty, Friedkin and Burstyn all jumped ship. The reviews were not kind, with Gene Siskel saying it was the worst major motion picture I've ever seen. And Friedkin himself called it a fucking disgrace. It's the worst piece of shit I've ever seen. Don't mince your words, Billy.
Nope.
Amazing.
In The Exorcist 3, 1990, both Friedkin and John Carpenter were in the frame to direct before creative differences left Blatty taking the reins himself. Adapting his own novel Legion, on an $11 million budget, it returned $39 million and holds 59% on Rotten Tomatoes and 6.4 on IMDb. George C. Scott plays Kinderman, and it's got the mother of all jump scares. It's a great film. It's a great film.
It is a great film. Then you get the prequels where it all gets messy because one prequel became two films. Paul Schrader was brought in to direct a Merrin origin story with Stellan Skarsgård as the younger priest. But when Morgan Creek saw a rough cut, they decided it wasn't what they wanted, lacking the obvious horror elements, and scrapped it to bring in another director.
So, yes, that other director, enter Rennie Harlan of Die Hard 2 and Cliffhanger fame.
Yeah, admirable choice.
Yeah. Who took a similar plot but completely different, far more conventional horror tone.
Yeah.
His version, The Exorcist: The Beginning, arrived in 2004 with poor reviews and box office receipts. This led Morgan Creek back to the shelved Schrader film, but then skimped on the money needed to finish it. Dominion, prequel to The Exorcist, eventually crept out in 2005 on a $30 million budget. It returned $250,000.
Oof.
Ouch.
A TV series ran from 2016 to 2018 and went some way to restoring the franchise's reputation. Then came the big money relaunch. David Gordon Green, fresh from reviving Halloween for Blumhouse, took on a new Exorcist trilogy. The resultant film, The Exorcist Believer, opened to horrendous reviews and a box office figure low enough to scrap all the planned sequels. Wow.
Yeah, I believe it's going to be revived yet again, so we'll hold our breath for that.
Yeah.
So, a potted history, what are your thoughts on The Exorcist sequels / prequels, Westy?
It's the same with all of the other horror franchises, if I'm completely honest. Texas Chainsaw, incredibly disappointing. Nightmare on Elm Street, there's a few good ones, but that's all over. Halloween, there's some good ones. It's just very hit and miss, very all over the place. They just go the easy route all the time for the sequels, and it never, ever works. And it's exactly the same with the Exorcist franchise. I did enjoy the series. I thought the series was quite good.
Yeah, I did.
But I think when it comes down to something for the big screen, unfortunately, Friedkin's done it all, and he's done it all in the first film.
Yeah, hiding to nothing.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Matt?
Exorcist 2, it's just incomprehensible. The only good thing about that one is the trailer, which is might be the greatest example of the trailer being much better than the film. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Sadly, the film just doesn't come anywhere near it. 3 got a lot of things going for it. Ties in with the first pretty well. George C. Scott's great. As we said, maybe the scariest jump scare of all time. If you don't know it, don't even think about reading up on it. Just let it get you.
Just watch
Let
it.
it get you. Yeah.
God. And then, the whole Dominion, Exorcist at the beginning. I mean, Exorcist at the beginning is Rennie Harlan films. All you need to know about it. Dominion's a bit better. Still not great.
No.
There's a bit more thought to it, but you're not missing out if you've not seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too far away from you two fellas at all. And they're all incredibly disappointing considering the first one. 2, I think, is one of the worst horror sequels ever, on par with Blair Witch 2. 3's got that mother of all jump scares, one of the very best.
Yes.
It does mask over a few deficiencies in the film for me, although it's clearly the best sequel.
Yeah.
And the least said about the rest, I mean, really the better.
Yeah.
We'll get more, I'm certain, but I think you're flogging a dead horse because you'll always be compared to The Exorcist, the absolute benchmark in horror, top tier.
Yes.
So you're always going to come out losing.
Yeah.
And finally, in the years since its release, where have you seen The Exorcist's influence? What do you think its legacy is, Matt?
I mean, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say it's one of the most influential films ever made. I mean, as we're saying, the whole slew of religious horror films that followed this, The Omen is the obvious example. And then films that carried on from The Omen. I mean, The Exorcist just keeps giving birth to more and more and more down the line. The amount of possession films, I mean, I couldn't even hazard a guess at how many there are. I think The Exorcism of Emily Rose needs mention because that one tried to do what The Exorcist did in taking the horror elements and contrasting them to a grounded, realistic world by having the exorcism form the background to a court case.
Yeah.
Not a great film, but it's well acted. It's got some interesting elements to it.
Yeah.
And I think Dick Smith's makeup, I mean, as I said, every single possessed person owes a debt to how Reagan looks in this.
Yes.
And you know you've made an iconic film when you get a spoof version of it years later, which obviously Repossessed with Leslie Nielsen. But, you can skip that one as well.
Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah, I mean, it created the possession film, and everyone that's followed is essentially just doing a cover version. The priest, the ruined voice, the little girl who isn't a little girl anymore. I think you can trace a straight line from here to The Omen to Amityville to The Conjuring, right through to whatever's out this weekend. Yeah. But I think the real legacy is bigger than the genre. I think it legitimized horror into respectability.
Yeah.
Hollywood suddenly had to take the whole thing seriously. Without it, you don't get The Shining, you don't get The Silence of the Lambs winning the lot. I don't think you get Gregory Peck, a prestige actor like that, wanting to be in a horror film, and then you don't get Jack Nicholson in The Shining. Its impact on the industry is immeasurable. A blockbuster movie cementing Billy Friedkin's reputation. Even if he never got close to these heights again, he's won.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not to repeat what you guys have said, but exactly what you guys have said. I mean, it's just such a revered film. It's one that you have to appreciate if you appreciate cinema, not just horror cinema, but just cinema in general, just for the guts behind it, just for the belief behind it, just for the desire for it to be made. And I think a lot of people look up to this film. I think John Carpenter's Halloween, like we've mentioned before, and we've pointed out similarities to that. It owes a lot to this film. I think John Carpenter's career alone owes a lot to this film. People forget that, the blockbuster, we've got Jaws and we've got Star Wars, but this came out before that. well before that. This was 1973, and this was people queuing around the corners in the winter to watch something that was pretty repellent at the time and absolutely terrifying. This wasn't escapism, this was absorption, and people were paying to see it, and I think people still need this kind of thing in their life. And the way that this has influenced, I think you wouldn't have the visual flair or the realism of Alien, where you've just got normal people in this weird, strange, claustrophobic environment that is believable and real. If you look at the more recent filmmakers, and two that I look up to really, and I think are two of the ones to watch, I think you've got Ari Aster, who has the family dynamic and that terrifying family dynamic in the house in Hereditary.
Yeah,
I think that really works and knows a lot of The Exorcist.
It's amazing.
And I think anything Robert Eggers does, I think you look back and he's got that real belief in that. It has to be realistic to the dialogue, has to be of the time. The grain on the camera has to look like it was shot at that time. So it does have its claw marks in pretty much everything, especially the horror genre.
Yeah, I mean, we could have a 3-hour podcast on this section alone.
Yeah, of course we could, yeah.
Suffice to say that The Exorcist set the benchmark to which very few have ever got close to, since, and that includes all the sequels and prequels and TV shows. Go for the third one for that jump scare alone.
Yes, absolutely.
All the Right Movies ranking.
We can hear the strains of tubular bells, but before we leave the scene, it's time to summarise and give The Exorcist our rating out of 10. And I'm going to go first, and I'm going to make it very, very easy. I've been explicit through the show, but if there was any uncertainty, I adore this film.
Yeah.
It had a heightened reputation before I saw it, and it didn't disappoint. And it is the epitome of perfect filmmaking with all elements purring, lightning in a bottle stuff.
Yeah.
Cast are outstanding. That's an easy thing to say, but the three main leads are as good as any performance in any film, not to mention Max von Sydow and Lee J. Cobb's Kinderman, one of my all-time favourite movie characters. It's an onslaught of imagery and sound that never fails to shock and inspire. This is Billy Friedkin being a madman, getting away with it, and creating a film in my all-time top 5. It is a 10 all day long.
Beautiful. Yeah.
What about you, Westy?
I mean, technically, it's inspiring. I mean, how to set shots up, how to draw out tension, how to draw out peril just through visuals and just through sound design, not even then bringing in dialogue and even, the physical performances that are involved. I think the writing's exquisite. I think the characters are fantastic. I think you've got a lot to dive into. Every single person on this planet, I think, can see a part of themselves in any of these characters that are on the screen, and any of the situations that they're going through. As supernatural and as terrifying as they are very human problems. It is an experience that isn't really pleasant to sit through, but it's a very important one. The impact this film has had on cinema and horror cinema is absolutely unparalleled. Friedkin absolutely nailed this to the wall. This was the film he was born to make. This was the film Peter Blatty was born to write. This is the film that Linda Blair was born to be in. And this is just a film that impresses me the more times I see it, with the amount of layers that it's got. It's an absolute masterpiece, and it's a very easy 10.
There you go. Excellent. 2 10s so far. Matt, what's your verdict?
I mean, there probably aren't that many films that have the legacy and reputation of this one for lots of different reasons. As I said, the fact it was banned for so long gave it this aura of a film, you do not mess with this. And then that first view, and how does it match up to what you've been building up in your head? Maybe that doesn't do it a lot of favours, but that's why this is one film you don't leave with just one viewing. Because if you're going into The Exorcist because you've heard about the head twist and you've heard about the bit with the crucifix, with all due respect, you're going into it for the wrong reasons. That's not why Friedkin and Blatty went into it. That's not why Ellen Burstyn and Max von Sydow went into it. And that's not why it's lasted over 50 years. It's lasted because Friedkin brought a hard dose of reality to the horror genre. It's lasted because Blatty took this idea of a young girl being possessed and made it about faith and lack of faith and guilt, and gives you a situation where you take out of it what you bring to it. If you're deeply religious, you'll read this film in a very different way to an atheist. If you've lost faith, this film will either make you want to rediscover your faith or make you really glad you've lost your faith. It'll give so many different interpretations. We can talk about the technical brilliance. We can talk about Friedkin's antics and how good the performances are. But ultimately, it just comes down to what I said about the opening and closing sequences. A lot of questions, not very many answers. And that's why people come back to this film again and again and again. That's why I see fresh details and nuances and interpretations every time I watch it. And that's why I'm giving it a 10.
10, 10, 10. Perfect scores so far. Brilliant.
Yeah. Love it.
Our fourth and final score comes from our Patreon community who've been watching along and voting over the last couple of weeks. A few of their reviews to read out before we get to the big number.
Go on then.
Okay.
First up, we've got from Matt Walters. He says, I went to see a late night screening of this in a tiny cinema in Bexhill-on-Sea when it got re-released. I was terrified walking home through some leaves. The section that still scares me the most is Reagan in hospital and the clanking sound of that machine.
Yeah.
Every performance is a masterclass. The dream sequence is just hypnotic. One of the key films in cinema. A perfect 10.
Nice.
Boom.
And you can't argue with that, Matt.
No.
Next, from Daryl Van Horn, he says, 10. It's like the White Album of horror cinema. It's iconic for a reason. Still has the power to unsettle me decades after seeing it. Fantastic.
Nice. Yeah.
The White Album in more ways than one. They both contain piggies, for example.
No,
Yes,
nice.
they do. Yeah.
Unfortunately, the White Album contains piggies. Horrific song, that. And our third review comes from Dane DeJosi, who says, films just don't get much better than The Exorcist. For me, it's tied with The Texas Chainsaw Massacre as the greatest horror film of all time. I sound like a weirdo saying that this is a comfort film for me, but it just never gets old. A giant 10 out of 10.
Beautiful.
So 3 perfect 10s on the spin. So what's your overall patron score, fellas? Is it heavenly or has it been cast out?
It has to be 10. It has to be 10. You can't love cinema and not give this film a 10 out of 10. It's just impossible.
Oh, all right, then I'll dive in as well. Yeah.
Come on, mate.
Yeah.
10 out of 10. Well, tell you what, you are both dead right.
Yes.
Full marks from the community, hard to argue with, which gives The Exorcist a very, very rare, perfect 40 out of 40.
Love it.
Boom.
Incredible. Have some of that.
Indeed.
And that is us done with The Exorcist, but we will be back in 2 weeks. Next on the show, it's me, John and Matt, and we're going somewhere a bit sunnier and a lot funnier. It's Billy Wilder's Some Like It Hot.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So get your bathing suits packed and your ukulele tuned. Nobody's getting their heads turned around in this one unless it's to catch a look at Marilyn.
Well, yes, there is that as well.
That's in the can already, Matt. We had a great time.
It was a wonderful, wonderful recording. So
Yes, it was. And if 2 weeks feels like a long time to wait, the Patreon community has plenty to be getting on with. This month's double feature is on underrated sequels. Westy's choice was standing up for Predator 2 and Alien 3.
Wow.
Excited about that.
I'm astonished about that.
Yeah. Want to explain yourself, Westy, or are you saving that for the actual episode?
Save that for the show.
Yeah, give us a few more days to think about that.
And if you missed it, the latest episode of The Watch List landed last week with our verdicts on everything currently out. You can listen to the public version of The Watch List, then get part 2 if you're a patron. That and double feature are waiting for you at patreon.com/alltherightmovies, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Come on in. The water is just fine.
Absolutely.
And you can find us across the usual social media platforms. We're on X, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, TikTok. Our making of movie threads go up on X and Blue Sky, researched within an inch of their lives and with every fact coming from at least 3 sources or straight from the mouths of the cast and crew.
Yeah.
And everything we do is at alltherightmovies.com.
Yes, indeed.
And that just about wraps us up on The Exorcist. We're all off now to check into a private hospital. Hopefully we'll be out for the next episode.
Absolutely. Who's paying for that? You?
Who got the money for that, Jimmy?
You?
Thanks so much for listening, and
Thanks
we'll
for
see you in
listening,
2
guys.
weeks for Some Like It Hot.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.